and I'm the founder of Lookup, and we're so excited to have you guys here today. So we have so much amazing content in store for you guys, so I know that you'll enjoy it as well. So before we get started, I wanted to quickly introduce Lookup to you guys first. So after observing how middle and high school students struggle to find relevant opportunities and information concerning the computer science and engineering fields, Lookup was created to help out students who are looking for career guidance and other additional information. So we strive to give students the access to the resources they need in the most convenient way possible and to inspire students to learn more about and pursue their interests in computer science and engineering. So some of the things we do include providing an extensive amount of resources, such as posting articles on our website on a variety of topics, sending bi-weekly newsletters, and holding events and workshops such as this one. So if you see the bottom of the slide, we have a bunch of ways where you can get connected with us. So you can just check those out after the workshop. So here's our agenda for today. We have the order of our speakers listed on the slide. And after our speakers' presentations, we will be holding a Q&A session with the audience. So make sure to stay until the end for that. And our speakers will be answering all of your guys' questions. So as our speakers present, if you guys do have any questions, you can just type them in the chat and we will address them during the Q&A.
Yeah, I can go ahead, I think. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Esty. It's like saying estimation or SMT. My full name is Esther Varga. I'm studying aerospace engineering at Virginia Tech. I'm a sophomore. And then I also have my website put there because I'll talk about that in a little bit. So as I mentioned, I'm studying aerospace engineering at Virginia Tech. I am a sophomore. So I have a lot of cool classes. And then I'm also a member and a mentor at the New York Academy of Sciences, which is a great honor. And then I technically have a job as a science influencer. So hence the weird name. I'm Hungarian. I'm actually the only Hungarian female engineering student at Virginia Tech, which is pretty crazy considering we have almost 40,000 students here. So, it's definitely being an only one kind of thing. I also participate in DBF section of Virginia Tech, which is Design, Build, Fly, and we build RC planes. I also have a job as an undergraduate lab assistant at our engineering lab. So I do a lot of 3D printing, laser cutting, and just building things, which is really cool. And then I also have my own research over the numerical solutions of ODEs applied to aerospace engineering, which is very much coding and math centered to kind of dumb it down. And it's really cool. So a little timeline of how I got here. So up until the age of kind of 15, 16, I actually hated STEM. I never liked any of it. I was definitely the person who was like running away from their STEM classes. And whenever people were like, yeah, we're going to have physics, I was like, oh, dear Lord, no. I wanted to be a writer and I loved reading books. And I had like my 75 years old typewriter and I was one of those kids. But then one day, because I went and did 5 years of high school, which is kind of a program you can do back home where in your first year, you only study languages, which is, for me, was English, quite obviously. I got a little bored. So I went to a program called School where they teach girls how to code in like one-day workshops and things like that. And I wasn't like particularly interested, but my idea was, you know what, there's nothing to lose. Why not give it a shot? And by give it a shot, it was definitely kind of like that first line of code, like magical feeling. And after I ran like my first line of code, which was probably something like drawing a rectangle on the screen or something like that, I was in love. And a lot of things changed after that. So not only did I fall in love with this whole thing and found out that I loved all of it, I started loving science a lot too. So I spent a lot of time like writing codes for games, and I made a lot of games which were pretty bad. They were really bad games, let's be honest. Like when you first start coding, it's definitely more about quantity and succeeding than it is about quality. And if I were to see that code today, it would definitely be very embarrassing. We've developed a lot, that's for sure. And then around 16, I saw a documentary about the Higgs boson, which talked about the multiverse theory, which is someone who grew up with Marvel and Star Trek and all that. I was hooked. I was like, excuse me, this is like an actual physical possibility. Like, I want to know everything and anything. So what it ended up being is that I really started loving space and I really started getting into higher physical theories, which is, I guess, an interesting thing to be into when you're about 16, 17. And then, I thought, I could be an engineer. I could work for like a space program. Why not? It's a possibility, that's for sure. And then everything changed when I did my first research project. So, as I mentioned, I'm very much on the track of doing academia with my life, which is not a very common decision when it comes to engineering. You usually just want to go and work for a great company, which is great. But I've fallen in love with like the very high theoretical parts of everything. So I started doing research when I was around 17, 18. I was actually a junior academy member of the New York Academy of Sciences, where we participated, and I actually won one of their challenges and was flown out to New York and things like that. And then I came to the US when I was 19. I started college here, which was very much a life changing and everything changing kind of experience. So I still live here in Blacksburg, Virginia. So a little bit ahead of time for most of you probably. And then the now is a little even more interesting. So when I first started doing this whole coding thing back home, I was asked to give a lot of interviews and things like that because I love to talk, as you've probably noticed in the past few minutes. It's one of my great attributes, to say the least. And then another thing is that I just really liked it. So what happened is that I started giving speeches about getting more girls into STEM because Hungary has the lowest amount of females in STEM and engineering in the entire continent, actually, back in Europe. So I started giving a lot of speeches, and now I kind of do that as a full-time job for back home. So I'm actually paid by Hungary to be a science influencer, which is it's really damn cool. It's very much a new experience, especially with the blog that I just mentioned. So I now write kind of educational, informative, but kind of fun posts and articles about things that I learned through various topics. So how it is to fail exams in university and what you can learn from that, to how you can start doing research and how it can be terrifying, but what are the things you should remember when you do that and things like that. So it's been pretty great, and I'm pretty happy with where I am now. Also, yeah, as I mentioned, a lot of things changed in the past like 5 years. So I'm barely 21 now. I just had my birthday a few weeks ago. And as you start getting older, this is like a very common question and people love to ask you is, what is like the next 5 years? Like, where do you see yourself? What do you think you're gonna do? And as I'm sure you've realized, I have no idea, simply because of the fact that in the past 5 years, my entire life changed because I'm so young and because all of us are so young. And a lot can happen in those 5 years. And also because I have a lot of plans. So, as I mentioned, my path is probably academia. I really want to get a PhD. So, a lot of extra years in school and studying, which I'm definitely excited about, and then trying to work on the blog and getting more people into STEM and interested in science, because as much as I'm personally not like very hooked on the whole influencer thing, I feel very much old for it. I do love talking about science in a way like that, and I think it's a really cool way to do it. And then I guess just a few of the main lessons that I really love to talk about. So as I mentioned, I'm definitely the only one. That can add a lot of pressure when you're just, so for me to go to college is not just like, oh, I go to college, I have to pass my classes and things like that. It's also this idea that I still do a lot of like ambassador work back home and things like that. And then like you talk to this 14, 15-year-old girl who looks at me and she says, yeah, I've never heard about aerospace, but I really want to do it. And it's kind of like, as much as it's an added pressure, it's very much a great honor. And I love that aspect of like doing something that no one has really ever done before you. Aerospace engineering doesn't actually have a translation in Hungarian. So I'm definitely doing something that no one really does back home, and I couldn't have studied it back home. So it's very much an honor for me to go to college here. And then for the New York Academy of Sciences, I mentioned how I used to be a mentee and now a mentor, which gives a very different kind of perspective on the whole experience and situation. Mainly because when you're so young, but also able to tell people about your experiences, I think it's a really great way to connect with them too, because I can still very much remember some of the struggles that I encountered, and those struggles can change a lot throughout generations and what you're facing. So I think it's a really great way for me to work towards getting more girls and young people into STEM, and helping them along those journeys. And then also just this idea of finding new dreams. So as I mentioned, I went through a lot of different experiences that led me to be where I am today. And that is especially true about research. Even when I started college, as much as I liked research, I wanted to work for like NASA or SpaceX, because who wouldn't? I think that's a really easy way to explain it. Who wouldn't? But also, I fallen in love with the whole thing. I love reading about it. I love doing the very interesting and hard work that goes into it. And I think it's just really cool.
Thank you, Esther, for that amazing presentation. Hi, guys. I'm Sanjana. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Sorry. So a little bit about me. I'm currently, I'm a 19-year-old, so second year at UC Davis studying computer science primarily and minoring in technology management. I'll get into more of like why I chose that specific like two intersections when talking about my journey and how I got there. But currently I'm an undergraduate research assistant at UC Davis. We're working with browser fingerprinting, computer security, and we're working alongside Mozilla and Apple to figure out a way to improve browser security for future versions of Mozilla and Safari. I'm also a CS instructor at an e-learning company called Juni Learning, and I am a technology volunteer at a student-run nonprofit on the campus at UC Davis. Okay, so Sejal did tell us that a lot of you guys had questions about how we got into our fields starting from high school. So the number one advice I give you as a high school student, or no matter how old you are, is to take the classes that you find most interesting and not necessarily like, oh, they all have to line up in one single like pathway. So to bit more about myself, as an 8th grader, registering for classes as a freshman, I'd heard about this class called IED, and mind you, like I had no inclinations of what I was going to do in my career entering into high school as a 15-year-old, but I did have curiosity as to what engineering design is. So I signed up for it, not knowing what would happen, if I'd like it or if I'd do well in it, just because I was curious about it and it intrigued me. So I signed up for that my freshman year. And that was the first true technology class that I took as a high schooler or any kind of student. And the surprising thing is, at first it was a bit challenging for me, but I ended up like loving engineering design so much. I really like the application of how you could create products and how you can start with like a blank screen and scale it up to like a 3D model of like whatever you wanted to build. And the final project of that class was actually building like whatever you wanted. So I had a lot of fun like engineering it from the start to bottom. And that experience really led me to think about technology as a career in the future. I had no idea like code or software, like what I could do with that. So I still didn't have much like knowledge or experience with programming, but I did know that I do like engineering design. I do like technology. So that was me entering high school. And other things that I did know about myself was that I was really passionate about education and children and those causes. So entering high school, I joined UNICEF and I joined Girls Learn International. And both of those clubs work with humanitarian causes. So I decided to give it a shot and see if my passions aligned with those causes. And I'm happy to say that it did. I ended up being 4-year members for UNICEF, GLI, and DECA. So DECA was another club I joined, primarily because also I wanted to explore my interest in business. Coming into high school, I had no idea if I liked business or not, same as like IED and engineering design. So I decided why not take it and see if I like it. And I ended up loving it. So like just that, like taking that step to like join those things that you're intrigued by goes a long way in figuring out like what you want to do with your career after high school or post college. So that was 15. As a sophomore in high school at 16, that summer after sophomore year, I actually landed an internship at an innovation foundation in India. And how that works is they basically work alongside nonprofits and they work alongside innovation companies who are doing really like groundwork in India to help scale their innovations. So I was in charge of identifying companies that needed help. So through that research and through that like finding contacts and going through all the companies and what they do, I learned to appreciate the application of technology. and like what a single line of code can do in terms of going into villages and saving newborn children, or offering education to children who never had the opportunity otherwise. So throughout this summer, this is actually what really got me thinking about, hey, maybe I could work in tech and combine my interest of humanitarian causes and technology together. So after this internship, I really didn't start to think about my life as a software developer. That's why in junior year of high school, as a 17-year-old, I took AP-CSP, which is AP Computer Science Principles, my first CS class ever. So I didn't even start coding until 17. So much like Esther, after writing that first line of code, I started thinking, hey, maybe this is for me. Like I always enjoyed putting things together, like engineering design. I always enjoy the application of it to business. So I thought, hey, this might actually be a career for me. So as a senior in high school, I decided to apply to UC Davis as a CS major, and I got in. So since then, you would believe, hey, you're a college student, so now you know what you want to do with your life. That's not the case at all. All I knew as a college freshman going into college is that I wanted to work in technology. I liked software, I liked the application of software, and I wanted to use software for social good. So combining my club work at I went to American high school. So combining my club work for DECA, UNICEF, and GLI, and figuring out that I liked applications to social good, I combined all of that and said, hey, I'm going to apply as a CS major at UC Davis. So going as an 18-year-old, you think that's pretty old, but most of us didn't actually know what we wanted to do for a full-time career entering college. So at college is really where you continue doing that thing that I told earlier in the presentation. Whatever that intrigues you, go find out more about it and go learn more about it. And as a freshman, I talked to so many people in different clubs, and I talked to them about why they joined and how they're enjoying it so far. And I ended up joining a lot of technology clubs that I'll talk about more in the future. But as a 19-year-old right now, I'm pursuing tech, as I mentioned on the first slide, through those 3 avenues. So I'm trying to see as a researcher what the the exciting part of research is that you're finding out new things all the time, and the applications for those new things that you're finding out can be infinite. So like, let's say you find out something about like a browser and how it works for security, that application can go on to influence thousands of people's lives. So that's the exciting thing about me for research currently as I'm pursuing tech. In the tutoring field, I really do enjoy those like one-to-one connections and helping someone and seeing them like figure out a topic. For example, like loops, like seeing someone understand indexing and all those things really gives me a lot of satisfaction. So that's why I decided to become a tutor. And then currently, I also mentioned the first slide that I'm working as a technology volunteer at a nonprofit. So those interests of social good and technology combining together, that's why I decided to join the club. But like all these things, I didn't know I was going to join these clubs as a freshman. I just gravitated towards what drew my interest, and I decided to like spend my time there. So just as like an overall high school timeline, like fact, if you know nothing from this, like what I talked about for the last 2 minutes, please take the classes that you're interested in, and gravitate towards things, like figure out how to get to your goals. Don't necessarily think about how it's going to impact me, just go towards what interests you, and you'll end up figuring out a pathway by yourself from there. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. So as a college student now, I wanted to show you guys how those interests in high school ended up affecting me as a college student. So I've always loved performing arts. I started like Indian classical dance as a 4-year-old. My mom's a teacher. I started like Indian classical music as a 5-year-old. So like music and dance have always been a part of my life. So I decided to pursue those 2 cultural avenues in college through an Indian classical dance team and a South Asian a cappella team. So those 2 things ended up being something that carried on with me from high school. And the interesting thing is the more connections you make in college, the more opportunities you learn about. So And my acapella team, half of them are CS majors, so I ended up learning about a lot of new opportunities in the tech field from them. So another important thing is when you're interviewing for internships in college, recruiters will ask you questions about like what other things are you doing in college besides like tech. So those kind of like things that you're interested and passionate about really do come across even in an interview for a tech position. I've had people ask me about, hey, what are you doing? Like, what is South Asian acapella? And then I would give them a spiel about like how passionate I am about music and like how these interests combine together. So in college, continue to pursue tech-related activities, but also don't forget to carry on those interests you had as a high schooler, because those do make an impact in your career future. So those are some of the things I'm doing in college in performing arts. And tech-related, I did talk about these 3 things that I'm doing currently. And then the last thing, I'm actually working with a group of people who are my friends, CS majors, as a product lead for an independent project. It's a web application, and we're learning like 5 different languages, working together to figure out how these languages will combine together to form a web application. So like the process will never end. Like you'll continue to learn like every single second of like your high school career, your college career. What I wanted to like bring across through this presentation is that like none of us completely know exactly what we're doing at all given times. We're just following our interests. So if those are some of the things in college that I ended up being interested in, and I followed through with it by devoting my time to being a member of it. And then the very, very last slide, I wanted to talk about 3 future goals I had. So you'll have more goals, but it's good to identify a couple of future goals so that you'll understand like what your path will lead to. I first discovered the field of product and product management as a 19-year-old, so like me right now. And once I discovered it a couple months ago, I decided to go full on and pursue it. Because I always knew that I liked engineering design, I liked technology, I liked the applications of it, and I always loved thinking about new products and how you can make them. So that's why I decided to look into the product field as a product manager. So that's currently my goal outside of college. Post grad, I want to get a PM job and see where that takes me, because I know I'm interested in product. After I get a job post college, I want to work a couple of years and see if I still interested in getting an MBA, which is a master's in business. I've always wanted to work towards that goal, but we'll see how far, or if I'm still interested a couple of years into the industry. And then when I'm like rich and like old and like I don't need to worry about like anything else, I want to open a nonprofit. I've always had a passion for like social work and like social good. So like ideally my nonprofit would go towards giving education opportunities for underprivileged kids. So currently the nonprofit I work at, we do reach out to rural communities in India, and we offer them technology solutions, and we give them laptops and education equipment. So all these things, like all these interests that I'm like working towards, will hopefully culminate in like a nonprofit foundation, like when like in the future when I have enough money and capital to devote to it. But yeah, these are my future goals. If you have any questions, I know Sejal did tell you guys that we will be answering them in the Q&A. So thank you for listening to my whole spiel, and yeah, hopefully like you guys learned something.
Hey guys, so amazing presentation, both Esty and Sanjana. Hi guys, my name is Andrew, and I'm a mechanical engineering student at UCLA. Yeah, you could go into the next slide. So yeah, I'm also a second year at UCLA, and then I major in mechanical engineering, and I'm also doing a specialization in computer science. Basically, that's like it's like a knockoff minor in CS. Basically, like I don't get the title, but I take the classes just to get the knowledge. And then I'm an undergraduate researcher at the Robotics and Mechanisms Laboratory at UCLA, which is just a laboratory all about robots, and we do a lot of research about like humanoid robots, autonomous robots, and we do a lot of challenges with like DARPA funded challenges, stuff like that. Yeah, next slide. So some of my interests that aren't academic are basketball. I play the saxophone. I like to dance, and I also like theater. So unlike SD and Sanjana, I actually like didn't do anything engineering related until I went to college. So throughout my entire high school career, I had like no interest in engineering, and I was like, I didn't do anything related to that. I kind of just like played basketball and just like I focused on school, but mainly just wanted to do stuff that like I found was fun. So this is like kind of like a lesson. You don't have to like be really scared about, oh, you're not doing as much in high school, because as long as you keep up your grades, you could definitely still go into engineering in the future. And talking about how I got into engineering. So when I was a senior and I was applying to college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew I liked physics and I knew I liked chemistry because both my physics and chemistry teachers in high school were really, really good. And then I knew I didn't want to major in physics because I didn't want to go into research. I wanted to go into industry. So then I just sat down, I looked at all the majors that were offered at the schools, and I just randomly chose one. Don't do that, because once I went to college, I realized that was the stupidest decision. I chose materials engineering, and then after my first materials engineering course, I realized I have no interest in it whatsoever. So I immediately switched out to mechanical engineering, and now I love it. It's amazing. Um, Another thing is I didn't touch CS until the end of I touched CS in my senior year in high school, but I failed that class. So I was like, oh, I'm never touching software ever. But then I took my first CS class again in college, and I was like, let me just give it one more try. And I turned out to have a really, really good professor, and then I started liking it as well. So then I wanted to find a way to match my physics interest and also my computer science interest, and that's when I found robotics and like mechatronics. And this field is really interesting to me because it's like a combination of mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and programming, which is like exactly what I kind of want to do. And once I decided that I wanted to do this, I just went full throttle into it. I cold emailed a bunch of professors to ask them about research, and that's how I landed my undergraduate research position. I kind of just emailed them out the blue, and then one out of like five answered, and that's how I got the position, which is really cool. And also for school clubs at UCLA, I'm also part of another robotics club, which is, oh, it says my internet's unstable. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm just keep on going. So yeah, so I also did a robotics club. So I'm doing robotics research and a robotics club. Um, and then also that's something that's non-engineering that I'm doing. I'm also in a business fraternity, and that's basically what I'm doing in college. So yeah, next slide. So yeah, so my future goals. So I have three potential like paths that I want to go down right after my undergrad. So the first one is just industry. Like I said before, I really wanted to go into industry and not research, and I just want to go and make money. So that's my first pathway that I'm considering. Another one is definitely grad school, specifically like a master's in engineering again, because I feel like the path that I want to go down, which is robotics, like requires a bit more education. And I feel like doing a master's in mechanical engineering or a master's in robotics or a master's in computer science can really, really help me and like give me like a better chance in getting like a job in the industry as well. And then another one is actually after I joined my business fraternity, I learned about MBAs, and I thought that might be a really good opportunity to just get and then learn about the management side of things. And then my last interest is I'm really inspired by people like Khan Academy and a lot of like engineering YouTubers online. And I feel like that's something that's really interesting. And when I get a lot more knowledge in the future, I would love to be someone like that, which inspires younger generations for STEM. So yeah, that's basically it.
All right. Well, thank you, ST, Sanjana, and Andrew for your amazing presentations. I'm Anjali. I think I'm the oldest person on this call. I graduated from American High School in 2015. And then I did my Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science at UMass Amherst. And I also did a minor in psychology, but it wasn't really official enough to put it. there. And now I'm currently a second year student at Georgia Tech, where I'm doing my Master's of Science in Human-Computer Interaction. If you want to find out more information about what I do after the call, I have my portfolio website linked. Okay, next slide. Okay, yeah, so as I kind of said, I'm at my second year at Georgia Tech, and the really cool thing about my master's program is that we have multiple tracks. So I have kind of stayed a little bit closer to computer science because I am in the interactive computing track, and that kind of focuses on all these really cool novel applications of computer science. So I am graduating this semester, so I will be moving to Boston, Massachusetts, where I'll be working as a UX researcher at Chewy, which is the e-commerce pet company. And UX research is a really cool field. I didn't know about it until I got to grad school. So if there's any advice I can give to high schoolers is that there's plenty of time to figure out what you want to do. But a UX researcher is someone who talks to users of products, comes up with research methods to come up with ideas on how to influence the design of a product or a technology. And at Georgia Tech, I am involved in multiple areas of research, and these are some of my research interests: mental health, social media, and music technology. And I currently work as a research assistant in the Social Dynamics and Wellbeing Lab, which we study social media to understand how people feel and how that can be used responsibly and in a very therapeutic lens. So yeah, next slide. So I feel like I've had a wild timeline, especially since I think I have a little bit more experience now that I'm in grad school. So in high school, which was a long time ago, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And the stuff that I was doing in high school, I feel is not at all related to what I'm doing right now. So I, for the longest time, wanted to go into marketing and go to business school. I was in DECA for, I think, all 4 years of my high school. And I was also involved in a few clubs, and I worked as an avid tutor. So I enjoyed helping people out with their homework. And I was just kind of taking normal AP classes. I think in high school, there was definitely a lot of pressure to kind of do what everyone is doing and try to be involved in a lot of things. So I think I had a hard time really finding out what I want. So that being said, even though I thought I wanted to do marketing my entire time, senior year rolled around and I applied to computer science schools, just kind of randomly out of nowhere. In high school, I did kind of do some graphic design work. I did really enjoy web development, but I never thought that this is something that, oh yeah, I can make websites for a living. Like I didn't have that like clarity in high school. So I just took a chance. I applied to some business schools, but I mainly applied to CS schools with absolutely zero coding experience. And I was like, fingers crossed, I hope I get in. So I then ended up going to the University of Massachusetts Amherst. So I grew up in Fremont, so moving to Amherst was a big change, but I think it helped me so much. And coming in with no coding experience, there was a big learning curve that I felt I had to do. My first intro CS class, I think just like ST and Sanjana said, that first line of code you write feels really cool. And then you start to see that you can make really cool things. But I also wanted to share that there were a lot of setbacks that I did face in trying to learn computer science. And my first CS class went fine. Then I had a data structures and algorithms class my next semester, and I ended up failing that class because I just couldn't keep up with the workload. And it really hurt, it like really stung. And I felt like this was kind of one of the first times in my life that I've truly had a huge like roadblock. But then I retook it over the summer. I got an A in the class, and then I was like, okay, if I can do this, I can continue as a CS major. And then throughout the course of college, I did a few internships in multiple areas of computer science. And I think that is kind of the beauty of computer science. There are so many different areas that you can actually build a career out of. So my first internship was in big data, and my second one was in security. So I just was really gravitating towards trying a bunch of different things, really keeping my mind open in terms of what I could actually take. And then at this time, I was also taking classes in psychology outside of CS, because why not? You're in college, you have so many classes at your disposal, might as well do that. And then another thing that I did in college was I wanted to involve myself more in the program. So I took a job as a computer science student ambassador. I felt that was really important in my program, as because in general, I think computer science still is not, there's not a lot of women in CS. There's not a lot of people in color, especially in Amherst, Massachusetts. There was not a lot of diversity. So I wanted to kind of prove and kind of show my face as this is an example of someone who is successful in computer science. So it was an amazing job. And I think that also helped boost my confidence a little in the major. Then I ended up graduating, and oh yeah, before I say graduation, as I said, I took a bunch of classes in my undergrad, and I discovered this field called human computer interaction. And at that time, I knew I really loved psychology. I knew I liked CS, but I didn't like the core technical aspects of CS. I liked the application side of it. So I ended up taking this class, and I felt like all my interests were really merging. Like, so human computer interaction is the study of how people interact with technology, which is very vague, very broad, but it combines design, it combines psychology, it combines engineering, CS, helping others. So I just thought it was a really great culmination of all my interests. And I basically stalked a bunch of people on LinkedIn. I just Googled online. I read a lot of Medium blogs, and I discovered that there was an actual tangible path that I could take. I could apply to graduate school. And this is something I could actually build a career out of. So I ended up applying for, I think, maybe 10 schools for my master's degree, and I was lucky enough to get accepted into Georgia Tech, which is where I'm at right now. So while my undergrad was definitely more exploratory based, my time at Georgia Tech has been more focused, because I think here I've started to find a career that I really love. And then my research interests are more solidified. So I worked as a computer science TA for 1 year at Georgia Tech, so last year at Georgia Tech. So I'm still continuing my passion of helping people. I'm getting to do more academic research, which is something that I only discovered late in my undergrad. And in general, I think a master's degree is in general more focused, and you get to network and meet a lot of people of so many different backgrounds. And as I said, this is my last semester, so I am very lucky to have a job lined up. So I'll be working as a UX researcher at Chewy. So it is, even though my journey was really long, very convoluted, there were moments when I had no idea what was going on. I think things are working out, which is great for me. So yeah, next slide, please. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about my two colleges. So I put the link of the programs that I went, but I just wanted to share a little bit more of what I specifically did to help me in these. So as I kind of said, I took a bunch of classes outside my major, like linguistics, psychology, communication disorders, but then I also started to find topics that I love. And I think that's really important, to be able to know yourself enough and to know at least what you're gravitating towards. You don't have to know exactly everything, but you can at least start to I guess it's like a process of elimination. So for me, I knew I gravitated more towards like the design side of things, the stuff that people would actually see, more like how people think, how people learn, stuff like that. And I think another thing that really helped me was putting yourself out there and getting involved within your greater organization. It's not just all about classes. It's not just all about academics, right? So this job that I did, so being on the recruitment and outreach committee as a student ambassador, not only helped me professionally, because I got to know professors, I got to know the deans of my program, I got to see students in my program on a very constant basis, which not only helped my relationships, but it also helped me when I was applying to grad school because I got really good rec letters. But in general, it just made me feel like I belonged. I think imposter syndrome is something that everyone struggles with. So I think having a really fun experience being involved in a program can help lessen these feelings of imposter syndrome, because everyone is going through the same struggles that you are going through to an extent. And then also gravitating towards research is something that I started to do in my undergrad, especially during my senior year. Because I think in CS, there was a lot of push towards immediately going and working for like the best companies. And I mean, also who wouldn't want to do that? But I think it's also important to, once again, know yourself enough to know that there are other paths out there. There's not always just one straight path. So working in 2 labs in my undergrad, and then also completing a senior thesis, which was actually related to phishing emails. So it was kind of related to an internship I did. It kind of validated my interest in pursuing a master's degree. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and then at Georgia Tech, yeah. So here, once again, I really got to focus on the things I love. And I think research is such an amazing thing because depending on your school, there are so many professors, like hundreds of professors, literally researching any topic that you can possibly think of. So for me, as someone who still doesn't really know exactly like what she wants to do, or I have multiple interests, I think here I get to explore multiple of those interests, such as like mental health, therapy, music, whatever. I get to do it. And also I have found that actually speaking at events like this, or to just talking to a bunch of other people, that also helps me, because I think you know, you can learn so much. You never know when you're going to learn something. So I think just kind of being open and present at a lot of events and involving yourself in research and having an open mind really helped me at Georgia Tech. And also just discovering new career paths. When I was in high school, I did not even know what HCI was. When I was in college, I didn't know what UX research was. So I think just kind of being open, once again, talking to a bunch of people, you never know who you're going to find that is going to change your trajectory, or you're never going to know what opportunities are going to come. So, and I think picking a college that gives you a bunch of different opportunities, such as like career fairs, coffee chats, networking, whatever, even just like informal hanging out, is super important. And then I also think the people that you surround yourself with are also really important. So that is why I absolutely love Georgia Tech. The people here are really diverse in every sense of the word. I am actually one of the youngest people in my program. So I know people who have gone into industry. There's someone in my program who is 60 years old. So it's insane. It's really cool. International students. So it just is like really important to always surround yourself with even people who are not like you. So yeah. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, and just to kind of reiterate what I have been saying, these were, if I had to boil down my 6-year experience into 3 things, this is what I would say. So don't force something you don't enjoy. I know I was definitely guilty of that in high school and in college, trying to do things that I thought were, you know, that were going to be like lucrative or something. But no, I think just focusing on what you enjoy is going to be way more important in the long run. And once again, there's no one correct path or timeline. If my journey is anything, it's a kind of I guess a reminder that it's good to be open-minded and to have faith that things will work out, and then also to be genuinely curious, because I think if I kind of put my head down and did what I was told to do, I don't think I would have been where I am today. Instead, I decided to talk to a bunch of people and then just really keep my eyes and my ears open, and yeah, and here I am doing something that I did not even know existed in high school. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much to all of our speakers for those amazing presentations. I feel so inspired now just listening to all of your guys' experiences. I think it's all the takeaways we can really definitely like apply it to our own lives and our own journeys within technology as well. So now we're going to be moving on to our Q&A segment of the workshop. So first we will be addressing the questions that were asked in the registration Google form, and then we'll be moving on to the questions that were asked in the chat. So speakers, just feel free to answer any of these questions, and multiple people can definitely answer the same question because definitely with all the different perspectives. So yeah, let's get started. So the first question that was asked was, what types of classes should I be taking as a high schooler interested in engineering?
Well, for me, I feel like it depends on what your high school offers, but like the ones that definitely like they offer, like if you're interested in engineering, definitely like AP Physics, AP Physics C if you like it, the AP Chemistry classes, the AP Computer Science classes, and so that's just specifically just for engineering, and also like I forgot which speaker said, but definitely just take the classes you're most interested in, because right now you know that you want to go into tech, but like who knows, maybe if you take a class that you really like, you might end up switching, and that's completely fine. But yeah, definitely just keep your eyes open for different classes. But for specifically engineering, definitely the physics, chemistry, the calculus courses, and the computer science courses.
Yeah, following up on like what Andrew said, definitely like talk to your counselors and see what classes are offered at your high school and see if there's anything that interests you. And another thing that I wish I did in high school was to like if I'm interested in like a certain field, I wish I had like searched up like that major as a college major and see what like classes they end up taking and seeing if there's anything that relates to those classes as a high school class at your local high school. Another thing you could do is, as a high schooler, you can enroll at community college courses if those classes better appeal to like something in the engineering field. So, for example, I know like, a lot of community colleges offer like mechanical engineering or engineering classes that might not be offered at your high school. So definitely look into those too.
Yeah, definitely. So next question was, how did you choose which field to pursue within the computer science umbrella? For example, human-computer interaction, artificial intelligence, etc.
Wait, sorry, could you repeat the question again? It cut off a little.
Okay. So the question was, how did you choose which field to pursue within the computer science umbrella?
At least in my undergrad, we started off very broad. Like everyone had to take the same set of classes their freshman and sophomore year. But then when I became a junior, that's when the classes got a bit more specialized, and we had these tracks that you could take. So we had an AI track, and then that had a bunch of related classes. We had a security track, so I think that had a bunch of related classes. And I think what my approach was, I thought it would be good to try to intern in different areas because I thought that was where I could get the most, I guess, like the most real view of like the day-to-day work it would be. But I know that's obviously not possible. But I think in general, what would be really good is talking to people who have, knowing people older than you in your college really helps. You can ask their opinion about their classes. There's also a lot of advising that happens in programs as well. So in my college, we had juniors and seniors who were actually hired to give advice to freshmen and sophomores and even like mentor them, which is nice. But I think also just the internet is a really big resource. So for me, discovering HCI, um, I I first found it in a class. So I first took it my junior year. That's when I got the ability to take it because you can take these electives. But then one class wasn't enough. So then I started like just Googling online. I saw videos from other colleges. I saw websites of people who are currently doing HCI. And that's when I was like, okay, this is something that I really want to pursue. So HCI is human computer interaction. It's kind of a subfield of computer science. In some colleges, it's under a computer science program. In other colleges, it is split between a school of psychology, a school of computer science and design. So yeah, that in general, it was my approach to kind of figuring out which subfields of computer science I wanted to keep pursuing.
So, okay, that was a great answer. So, what should high schoolers be doing to prepare themselves um, in high school if they want to pursue a degree in college? So I think what this question is, or this person is asking is like, are there, like, should I be trying to learn coding in high school? Should I try to join clubs related to that? Or is it like fine to just wait until college?
So my answer is definitely if you're interested in, like, you're interested in coding, you could definitely start coding like now. Online resources, there's so many courses that you can take that are free that can like teach you the very basics. I think recently I found on my YouTube there's like a 10-hour C++ course that goes through the entire like data structures and algorithm. And there you go. Like you could just pull up like an IDE and just start like coding following along. So if you are interested in that, definitely go. If you feel like you're still kind of iffy, then you don't have to worry. You can do it if you want. And if I were you, I would just make sure I like the STEM courses and the engineering courses in your high school first and see if you like them. I'm sure a lot of high schools have like robotics clubs, stuff like that you can join. I didn't join those in high school, but now looking back, it sounds really interesting. I feel like I would have joined, but just know that if you don't join, it's not the end of the world. You still got a lot of time. So
Yeah.
What I would add on to that is that as much as like you feel like you have to do everything, you don't. And I feel like this is one of the biggest things that you have to learn by the time you get to college, because college takes it to a whole another level. And I feel like all of us can agree on that, is that everybody around you, especially in STEM, will make you feel like you're not doing enough and that you should be definitely doing more and everybody's doing everything. But what you should definitely understand is that even we are barely in like our early 20s. We are young. You have an entire life ahead of you to do everything. And I don't want anybody to feel like, especially even before going into college, for any of you to feel like, you have to do everything. You have plenty of time to figure out everything. You have plenty of time to join those clubs. If you feel like you want to give them a shot, go and give them a shot. If you feel like you're just trying to do it because you feel like you have to, in the sense of, oh, I'm not doing enough to kind of further my career, you're doing enough by going to events like this and like being, open. And I think that's like the only you should try to be, is like be open to new things and ideas, and be open to trying them, but don't feel like you have to do everything, because even in college you'll see that everybody just starts taking like 6 to 20 extracurriculars next to already really, 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 really hard classes, and you can get really overwhelmed really quickly. And it's definitely a generational thing where our entire generation is so focused on, my workload has to be definitely from like, all-nighters all the time, and just this idea that you're never doing enough, and it's hard to kind of cope with that. So I think it's better to especially in high school, even you still have the time to teach yourself a mindset where it's also about centering, around your mental health, around giving yourself time to do other things, about finding other hobbies. Because I like to paint and cook and bake next to engineering and STEM, as much as like that's like one of my main passions. It's good to get away from it. So you should also look into things like that.
Yeah, following up on like all those amazing tips from Andrew and Esther, an important thing to know is that it is, if you're interested in like tech or coding, I would completely suggest that you guys give it a shot by like Code Academy or like any of these online resources, and see like if it's for you. And if you're interested in it, you're in high school, so there's so many clubs. Hopefully there's clubs in your high school that like cater towards engineering and tech, so you could try your hand out and see in those clubs if you're interested in like following through with those activities. And if you are, like, try going after like leadership positions if you're into that kind of stuff, but you're not forced to at all. An important thing to note is that in the tech field, especially, like, imposter syndrome is a really, really big deal. Everyone feels like they're not doing enough. Everyone feels like they're not experienced as like another person, like their same age. I definitely felt this a lot going into like college from high school, given the fact that like I only knew one programming language and I didn't know that like to the max. Like I wasn't a pro at it. But like the really important thing to know is that like to always believe in yourself and know that you are doing the most that you can, and that as long as you're happy and you're in a good mental, like you're mentally like in a good place, that's the most you could do for yourself. And all these opportunities that interest you, like those will like going after those will help you get wherever you want to go. So don't feel pressure to do everything in the world as a high school student. The last thing I wanted to say is also like in college, most of your intro to CS classes, they kind of go from the basics, like not like very basic, but like they will start off with like loop and like others like data structure. So don't like worry if you're not a pro at a language, because they put that in the curriculum for people who are like completely new to CS. So don't worry about like having to learn everything. But if you are interested, I would assume that you would look into these online resources. And the last note, the previous question talked about like intersections of tech. There's always new fields emerging within intersections of tech. For example, product management, which I want to go into. Most people who are product managers were CS majors or some kind of tech background, tech majors in college, and product management just emerged in the last couple of years as a big industry. So like new intersections will keep on like coming up. So it's up to us to stay informed on what's going on in the tech community and see if there's any new emerging like opportunities that like appeal to you. But yeah, like the big note is do not stress. Like everything will, like, just have fun as a high school student. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of high school students are, you know, worried about like if they should try to pursue like computer science related extracurriculars and classes, but you know, there's always time to explore that. So moving on to like more college related questions. So one person asked, what are your favorite classes you have taken for your major?
So for me, I guess that's a little different because I study a pretty unique major and I have a lot of like, well, not gonna lie, amazing classes. Like next semester, I'm gonna have astromechanics and things like that, which I mean, you know, when they say it's rocket science, it actually is rocket science. So for me personally, I really loved most of my hands-on classes. So I have had, I mean, they have not too interesting names like Introduction to Aerospace Engineering and Ocean Engineering. Which is a really interesting fact about aerospace engineering is that we take a lot of our classes together with ocean engineers, which at first to me was a huge shock, like coming to college, the idea that ships and planes and rockets are like the same kind of thing, but structurally and like the engineering behind it is very, very similar, which is pretty cool. I mean, it makes sense if you think about that they're both fluids, air and water, but I think it's still a really cool fun fact. So yeah, in those classes we not only like study really hard and fancy equations and like learn each and every part of a helicopter, including the Jesus nut, which is one of my favorite fun facts. That's like the main nut that holds everything together on a helicopter. We also learn. We actually build like model rockets and things like that. And I mean that's just amazing. Like you go to class and then you build something and then you actually launch it. Which is why I definitely recommend joining design teams. So even if you go into something like CS where a lot of your classes won't be that hands-on, you can still join a lot of so-called design teams where they literally make things. And I mean, for me personally, that's like one of the best things of STEM is like actually seeing your work like do something really cool, even if you just, you know, because you're a part of a team, you can still like code some parts of it. Obviously, code is always needed everywhere. I use code every day as an aerospace engineer. Just, you know, specific coding languages and what you do with it, but it's also just really, really cool. So I definitely recommend doing that next to classes, but a lot of your classes will be fun. I can promise that.
Yeah, that was an amazing answer. So the next question is, what are the recommended minors to take alongside a computer science? major? Or, yeah.
Honestly, I don't think there is any recommended minor. There are definitely more common minors that people do take because classes happen to overlap. For example, at my undergrad, we had a lot of CS and mathematics, double majors, and then CS majors with a math minor. But honestly, a minor is there kind of just it's just you're taking these extra classes as like your own interest. So I think especially with minors, with how little is required, like for me, my psych minor was only 5 classes. It can be in literally any area. And so I guess if you want to do more like humanities related applications of technology, you can then take like a humanities minor. If you want to do maybe more healthcare stuff, you can maybe take like a bio or a chem minor. It really is up to what you want to do. And just from my personal experience at college, I know I had some friends who did a computer science major and a classics minor. I personally did a CS major and a psych minor. So like there is no one recommended or like right answer. It's yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, oh yeah, do you want to say something?
Like really quickly for the previous question, who asked like what classes you're taking, you actually, this is like public information, like any college, most majors, they do release like a full like set of like a list of all classes that you're required to take for that major or minor or anything. So like if you want to search up like the school, the major, and you'll find all the classes that we're taking. And this could be from any university. Most of the US colleges do have it online publicly. So just a note. And then for the minor question, really, really quickly, like the minor you take, it varies dependent on your interest. So for me, I was always interested in like business. I did DECA in high school. That's why I did tech management as a minor. But I'm also thinking about doing a philosophy minor, which specializes in like logic, because I do like learning more about logic, especially in terms of like product management and like human computer interaction and those kind of fields. So the minors should just be based on your interest and not necessarily, oh, this is parallel with CS. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The next question was just what general tips do you have for applying to college?
I'd say my first general tip is don't over apply. So make sure that at least every college that you apply to is something that you kind of see yourself going. And I know that seems like common sense, but once again, I just think it is really easy to get caught up in rankings and numbers. So just make sure that you are applying to college because that's what you want to do, or you're applying to this major or program because that is something you want to do. And yeah, so don't over apply, don't stress yourself out on like numbers or like even tests and stuff like that, and just really focus. I'd say the most important part, at least what I saw in the applications, was like the statement of purpose, like having a good reason to like for your major or for the things that you want to study. I think really crafting your statement of purpose is the most important, and then like the academics and all of that comes second. So yeah, don't worry, it is a stressful process. I'm so happy I don't have to ever do that again possibly, but it is sometimes much harder picking a school than actually applying. So yeah.
Also, I guess to kind of add on to that is rankings are iffy. So I know it's really easy to be like, oh yeah, it's like the third or fourth or fifth in this major by like, you know, the first thing that pops up on Google kind of thing. But what you must remember is that college will literally equal your life for the next at least like 4 years or 3 years or whatever, right? And not only are you going to study there, you're going to live there. Like, and it's not just, and it's so hard to nail something like even if you just think about it, the US has hundreds of colleges, and you know, some of them are really good at techs. Like literally my school is called Virginia Tech, obviously, but then we also have a great business program. But you know, I wouldn't, I don't know, come here to study fashion or something, I guess. But the thing is and so the rankings change on that, and then rankings change on different majors. So like for example, for me, aerospace engineering is pretty specific. A lot of colleges don't even teach it, or they don't teach it for undergrad but only like masters and stuff. But Virginia Tech has a good one in that aspect. But then it's also things like look up things that you might not think of at first, like for example, even things like how religious are people there, because if that's something that's mainly a part of your life, you want to keep that up in your everyday life. And it's you're gonna live there again. And it's also like, how are the dorms, what do they look like, do you like the way that it's centered? So like Virginia Tech, it's in Blacksburg. When I say that, Virginia Tech is Blacksburg, and I'm not kidding. It's just the school and all of us who live here and nothing else, right? It's not like, I don't know, if you go to college in, let's say, New York, right? Like you might be literally in New York. Like, do you like that? Do you like the setting? um it's also things like food. So, for example, I have celiac disease, which is autoimmune gluten intolerance. I had to also think about that because I had to come and live here and eat somehow, obviously. And then, I don't know, I always think of this because Virginia Tech has literally the best food out of any US college, which is pretty cool. I mean, I'm not really affected by it, but I think it's a really cool fun fact. We have like a dozen kind of different eating places and things like that. And, it's just things like that too. Like, how are people, like the way I ended up choosing Virginia Tech is because I had personal interactions with people going to Virginia Tech and the way that they were behaving. And again, because it's literally going to be your life, you want to go to a place where you'll get along well with people. So I guess just remember that rankings are a lot of different things, and you should try and be, mindful about it and not just go to college because everybody says that it's a good college. Like, think about how your life will be, how much your classes might kill you, and, things like that too.
Also, yes. Also, one thing real quick about the actual college app process. What I would say is start early. Like, usually people start doing it like the beginning of senior year. But if I were you, like the summer into senior year, I would definitely just like at least go to some of the colleges that you're interested in and just look at like the essay prompts and kind of just throughout the summer, just like have it in your mind. And like throughout like the 3 months, just kind of develop something that you want to say. And also like you could definitely like hit up upperclassmen and ask to read their college essays, because I remember when I was doing mine, like I understood it was an essay, but like I didn't really understand like the structure of it until I really like read other people's essays. So that's a really good place to start off. And just I feel like the longer you're thinking about it, the better your essay will become. So definitely just start early and just start like pondering what you want to write about. So
Yeah, definitely. And I think our last question for that we're going to cover in this event would be, how important are like math and science related activities outside of high school when applying to college for an engineering or computer science major? Because I know a lot of you guys said you discovered your interest later on. So is it important to try to pursue it earlier on in high school, or is it fine to just pursue it in college?
That depends on where you want to go, I think, is the easiest way to read that answer up, because some schools still only care about your grades and all that stuff, and they're happy to give you a chance. But things like Ivy League, oh, nothing will be enough there, right? So, and I think that's just how everybody is. The more competitive the school is, the more likely that extracurriculars and things like that will matter. That's just, I would say, how it is.
yeah, coming from a person who had nothing on their resume in high school, it definitely helps. Like, don't get me wrong, if you know what you want to do and you want to do it, it definitely helps. um but it's not like the end all be all. I feel like if you have your grades, like it doesn't even have to be perfect. If you just have decent grades, you're doing like you have good essays, you could definitely still get into like top schools, as long as you like in your essays you have a unified like story, I guess, like a selling point as to why, even though you didn't do engineering or a lot of STEM in high school, why you can succeed in an engineering program in college. So like for an example, for me, because I had nothing to like write about engineering, I wrote about how I was able to like juggle multiple extracurriculars that weren't engineering, but the fact that I can handle like a rigorous schedule shows that in the future, when I do take on the schedule, I could definitely handle it. So that's definitely an approach if you don't have a lot of STEM background in high school. But yeah, if either way works, for sure.
I think like in terms of what I heard from upperclassmen applying to college is that like coming from someone like I only did like CS mainly for 2 years before I applied, or like a year before I applied, so I didn't have much to talk about for tech too. But at the end of the day, know that like admissions officers are looking for like good people, like good humans to enter into their college. So might like make sure that like your essays actually read like you and sound like you, because this person who doesn't know you should understand who you are in like a couple of essays. That's actually a crazy feat to think about in terms of like how you come across in just a couple of words, but really just make sure that your essays sound like you. And another thing is like my cousin, he's like a business major at Cal right now. And I asked him like, what essays did you write about? Like, what were some of the things talked about? And he said that he literally wrote an essay, like a UC essay about like why he likes to laugh really loudly, right? So like those kind of things, like that has nothing to do with business. That has everything to just do with like his personality and who he is as a person. So definitely just make sure that like when you're talking about yourself, you sound like yourself, and you sound like a person like who an officer would want to have on their campus and who would want to represent their school. So don't get too stressed about that. Like essays will like in the beginning they will be a little hard, but like as Andrew said, like the more you write, the more you think about them, the better they get.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've gone like 15 minutes over time and there are a lot of questions. So I think what we'll do, maybe we'll create like a Google Doc or something and answer all the questions on there for you guys to read. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for coming to this event, and thank you to our speakers for giving such amazing presentations. This event is recorded, so you will be getting access to the recording if you want to refer back to it later on. And yeah, so thank you so much for coming.